Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Ajit-teaches. Today I'm going to talk about risk. Risk is very important in cyber world as well as in day-to-day life. I'm going to talk about in terms of cybersecurity. So before we deep dive into risk, one of the very basic thing you require is the details of your asset and its value. Because risk cannot exist without asset. Risk is risk is there to target your asset. So one of the first thing is find out all the assets that you have and determine the value of an asset. Once you determine the asset and value of an asset, then you go ahead and try to find out the vulnerabilities. Risk cannot exist without vulnerabilities and threats, because if vulnerability is there, then only the threat will be there. So let's take an example. You have an asset server, okay, and it has a vulnerability that patch is not updated. If patch is not updated, it can lead to a threat that server can be hacked. So you see, risk cannot exist without threat and vulnerability. But these are very, very basic things. There are other two factors which are important, which is which will help you in defining the formal definition of a risk. Risk is defined as the product of likelihood of a threat exploiting the vulnerability into corresponding business impact. Let's take the simple example. You have a server, patch is not updated on a server, which is a vulnerability. A threat can exist because of this vulnerability that hacker can hack your system. So hacking is a threat. So as per my definition, risk is a product of likelihood into impact, the likelihood of threat exploiting the vulnerability into corresponding business impact. So in our case, if a hacker can hack your server, what is the likelihood of hacker hacking your server? And if a hacker hack your server, what is the impact of it? So risk is a product of threat exploiting the vulnerability into corresponding business impact. Let's take another example. And in this example, we can see how asset value plays an important role. In 2008, I was working for one account called Excite. There was a configure worm attack on, on that network. Every now and then, we used to get an incident that system is infected. So likelihood, as you know that in worm outbreak, the likelihood of system infections are very high. So every now and then the workstations were getting infected, so likelihood was already very high. But as it was user system getting infected, so impact was not high. So risk is a product of likelihood into impact, and definitely we also need to consider asset value. In this case, the workstation, the asset value was less. So the risk value of risk was not very high. I kind of consider it as a medium. But one day we got an incident that the CTO system got infected. So likelihood was already very high as it was a worm, but as CTO system was infected, so asset value was high. In that case, increases the risk to high. So it increases the impact to high, which automatically elevates the value of a risk to high, which was medium in case of workstation. So you see same scenario, virus infection, but in case of workstation, risk was medium. In case of CTO system, so risk was high. What is the thing which is making the difference? Asset and asset value. That's the reason I always say we should not only consider the impact and likelihood, the asset also plays a very important role. Let's consider a very simple example, simple example on the basis of my real life situation. I do conduct online classes. That's my bread and butter. So I had two things which is required for my class. two. One is my Bluetooth speaker, and second one is a pen tab on which I write. So both of these devices were single point of failure. And if I had to purchase both, that will cost me around 1 lakh rupees. But I had only 50,000. So I had to decide which one to purchase, pen tab or the Bluetooth audio speaker. So I did a risk analysis. What is risk analysis? The product of likelihood into impact. So let's consider first one, my pen tab. My pen tab was around 1 year old and it was a Japanese technology. So the likelihood of going down is, I would say, low. But and so likelihood is low. And if that goes down, impact is also not very high because I'm only using it for writing and showing it, using it as another screen. So impact on my class is limited. So risk is, I would say, low in this case. But at the same time, if I consider the Bluetooth speaker of mine, so if that was around 2 years old, so chances of going down is around high. And if that goes down, it can create a big problem for me because I won't be able to take my class effectively. So you see, likelihood is high, going down is high. And if that goes down, impact would also be high. So risk automatically will be high. So you see, in this case, I had I had chosen, I had purchased another audio speaker instead of Pentab because Pentab, the impact was not very high, risk was not very high. So I had chosen, just on the basis of risk analysis, I had taken a decision to purchase an audio gear. So you see, I told you risk is not only important, risk calculation is not only important in your cyber world, in a real world also. Another example, a very simple example that how you can use it in real world. I used to work in, means now I'm not working anymore with the company. So I worked with my previous organization. So one of my friends, he called me, Ajit, my position is advertised. Position advertisement means your position is at risk. You may get it, you may not get it. You may get another position in a company or you may not get another position in a company. I said, okay, tell me one thing. What is the probability of you not getting this position or getting another position? He said, Ajit, medium. There are chances that I may get another position. So you see, likelihood is medium. Then I said, okay, if you are laid off, okay, you are laid off, what is an impact of it? So my previous company was a very good organization, and that person had worked in the organization for around 13 years. So the overall compensation package was very good. Means he could have survived for another 12 months. So I said, yes, the package, the compensation severance package is very good. You could easily survive, and this is a one-time opportunity. Go and take another one. Take this opportunity. So you see, impact here, because of that compensation, the impact is kind of medium. So he was panicking a lot. But if I granularly break it down into impact and likelihood terms, the risk if he get laid off is very medium. So you see, you can use this in your day-to-day life also. So whenever you come across any situation, not only in a cyber security world, in a real world also, if you come across any situation, calculate the likelihood and impact of it. This will really, really help you. Thank you very much. Hope that helps.